The reading. The lawyer kept clearing his throat like he was trying to swallow a stone. His conference room overlooked Boston's winter gray skyline, glass and steel washed in the color of dishwater. It smelled like old paper and coffee burned down to tar. The chairs were too soft, as if to lull you into agreeing with whatever the law said was final. "My mother," I said, adjusting the sleeve of the black dress I had worn for the funeral a week earlier. Never made decisions without talking to me. Jade's laugh floated across the glossy mahogany table like cheap perfume. My daughter-in-law leaned back in her seat and glanced at my son, Lucas, with that practiced smirk the internet calls effortless. She was 29, with hair like spun bronze and nails that clicked against her phone screen as if punctuation belonged to her. "Sometimes people surprise you," she said, smiling with all her teeth. Lucas didn't meet my eyes. He seemed smaller in that blazer he'd bought when he got promoted to project manager, the one I hemmed in our Providence apartment because he never learned to sew. He kept rubbing the spot beneath his wedding band, a little raw circle that flashed every time he moved. The lawyer, Mr. Dalrymple, started to read. It sounded like a sermon written by a spreadsheet. Paragraphs and codicils, words like residuary and beneficiary, words that had slept in books for years and were suddenly wide awake, sharp, and hungry. When he got to the house, the two-family on Federal Hill in Providence that my mother, Eleanor, had owned for nearly 40 years, I stopped breathing. "To my grandson, Lucas Whitaker," he read, "and his wife, Jade Moreno Whitaker, I bequeath the property at 38 Bradford, including all fixtures, furnishings, and rental agreements, to be held in the Whitaker-Moreno Family Trust." My ears rang. The radiator in the corner popped and hissed like it was trying to say something no one wanted to hear. "That must be a mistake," I said, too calm for the way my heart was thundering. "She told me I would have the house so I could stop paying rent and—" Jade cocked her head. "Eleanor believed in investing in the future." "In your future?" My voice cracked on the last word. I hated that Jade heard it. Lucas finally looked at me. "Mom," he said softly, "Grandma wanted us to have a start." "Your grandmother wanted me safe," I said. "She said that house meant security." Dalrymple folded his hands. The sleeve of his suit was shiny at the elbow. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "there's a signed codicil dated September 17th, notarized. It supersedes previous intentions she may have expressed verbally." I remember the date because it was 3 days after I'd taken a double shift. Mom had fallen twice that week. I left casserole in her fridge and a handwritten list of meds, circled in red like I was grading a test. Jade slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a photo of her and Mom at a cafe in Wayland Square. My mother in her green cardigan, smiling the polite smile she used when she wanted to go home and be done with whatever she'd been dragged into. Jade had captioned it, "3 generations planning the future. Hash blessed, hash family." It had 97 comments, mostly hearts and hands in prayer.
"People change."
"See?" Jade said. "We were very close these last months." Something cold slid down my back, colder than the January wind that carved through Boston streets. I had missed brunches because I was charting discharge plans for a detox patient who didn't want to live to Friday. I had missed planning sessions because I believed the way you love someone is to show up when their oxygen is low and their pride is high, not to post proof later. Dalrymple went on. Small brokerage accounts, the contents of the safe deposit box, the ceramic cookie jar with the crack under the lid. He read it all like a man reading the weather in a town where the forecast had already blown through, flattening the trees. When it was over, the silence was perfumed. Jade's lip gloss smelled like peaches. "Eleanor told me she wanted the house in a trust," Jade said, all sympathy now. "To keep it in the family, you know?" Lucas and I will make sure you're taken care of. Taken care of. Like a plant left near a window. I stood up, smoothing the dress that had wrinkled in the car. My mother didn't talk to me about a trust. She would have. She always did. People change, Jade said, not even trying to keep the glee out of her eyes, especially when they realize who shows up. I could list every way I had shown up. The 2 a.m. UTI scare, the broken faucet I fixed with a wrench and a prayer, the stack of Walgreens receipts I kept in an envelope labeled Taxes Mom. But in that room, none of it mattered. What mattered were signatures and seals and the performance of devotion. On the drive back to Providence, I rehearsed what I would say. I rehearsed alternatives to screaming. I watched the snow-dirty shoulders of the highway slide by and wondered when love had started counting likes. At a red light on Broad Street, I finally let my hands shake. Then I did the thing I'm trained to do as a case manager. I built a timeline in my head. September 17th, codicil signed. August, Jade started taking Mom to that cafe. June, Jade found the Elder Law podcast and began quoting it as if it were scripture. Spring, Jade started picking up Mom's groceries to save me time. The thing about timelines is they don't care how you feel. They care about sequence. They care about who was where and when and what documents existed before the story hardened into the one everyone prefers to tell. Back at my apartment, I made tea, called no one, and sat with the steam fogging my glasses. My mother had taught me to make tea by warming the mug first. The heat needs a home, she'd say. I held the mug and thought about homes and heat and how winter can make you ruthless. By midnight, I knew exactly what I had to do. If grief is a tide, then rage, clean rage, is a scalpel. They had shamed me at my mother's will reading. I would answer in the only language I truly speak. Documentation, receipts, files, footage, and the peach gloss halo Providence knows all your business if you stand still long enough. The city is a lattice of corners where people pause and talk. The bakery on Atwell's with the cappuccino machine that sputters. The narrow liquor store off Westminster where the clerk has a rosary by the register. The laundromat on Cranston where gossip is a second dryer cycle. My mother's house stood in the middle of that web, like a graceless queen. Peeling paint, stubborn lilac bush that refused to die. I started with what I had. The Walgreens envelopes stuffed with receipts. I spilled them across my kitchen table and sorted by month. If paperwork is a language, then patterns are grammar. March, May, August, September. September had new handwriting, neat and loopy, on notes attached with floral paper clips. Got extra Ensure for Mom. J. Picked up Lasix. Pharmacist says hi. J. Cash purchase. My treat. J. I called the Walgreens on North Main, asked for the pharmacist who knew my mother by the way she hummed to the blood pressure cuff. We switched her to mail order in September, he said. Her granddaughter-in-law picked up the last batch. Daughter-in-law, I said. Oh, sure. Right. Next, the bank. I could see Mom's account because we had set it up together 5 years ago, back when she still came to the credit union with me and flirted with the teller in a black pixie cut. Password reset, 2-factor code, and there it was. A row of debits like teeth, all in neat lines. On September 18th, a $2,000 ATM withdrawal. On the 21st, $1,200. On October 3rd, $500. Before that, Mom never touched cash beyond quarters for the parking meter at Dr. Bell's. I printed statements and pulled a yellow highlighter from the drawer, the same one I used on home care plans. I thought of Jade's nail clicks. I highlighted until the page glowed like hazard tape. Caregivers. I called the agency we'd used for 3-day coverage. a small place in Pawtucket where the owner, Maria, keeps her hair scraped into a bun and her empathy warm and matter-of-fact. September was weird, Maria said. Jade insisted on paying the extras in cash, tips for the aides, she said. Then she changed the schedule, then asked if we knew anyone who could do private nights. Did anyone? One of our girls tried, but she quit. Said Jade texted her nonstop, wanted to move the medicine times to fit brunch. I told Jade that's a no. Do you have the texts? Maria didn't hesitate. We save everything. I biked to Pawtucket because it was faster than waiting for the 28th bus, and because moving made the buzzing in my head quiet. Maria printed me a text chain the length of a scarf. Jade's messages covered the page like ivy, emojis, hearts, then a weaponized cheerfulness that turned to needles if you didn't respond fast enough. Can we do 9 instead of 8? Brunch res. XO, Eleanor prefers almond milk. Pills change. Hey, following up. Pills charge mom cash tonight and I'll reimburse. Need the backdoor code for the app, thanks, Angel. Backdoor code? What app? Maria frowned at the page. She asked the aide for the agency portal login. We don't do that. I took the packet and rode home into a wind that tasted like metal. The backdoor code lived in the emails, my mother's old Gmail that she used like a storage shed, haphazard and stubborn. She was a paper woman in a digital world, but Jade had found the world useful. I searched for portal, found nothing. Searched for login, nothing. Searched for invoice. There, a PDF Jade had forwarded twice with the subject line, FWD, ElderCare-Pluss invoice. The amounts were generous. Double-counted hours. Overnight supervision charged on nights when I had sat awake in the chair by Mom's bed, listening to her breathe. The sender's address was off by a single letter, the kind of trick that steals money in the time it takes a nurse to change a bag of saline. ElderCare-Pluss had been doctored to ElderCare-Pluss. I opened the PDF and saw the footer. A Gmail address with Jade's initials turned into a business alias. The kind of thing you set up in 10 minutes and dissolve even faster. I saved the invoice and opened the PDF properties. Jade had exported it from a phone app at 1:07 a.m. My kettle started to scream. I let it. I needed footage. I needed eyes that had watched when I wasn't there. My mother's porch camera had stared politely at the sidewalk for years, catching mail carriers and Halloween witches, but the cloud subscription had been paused in, there it was, September. So I walked. Providence works if you walk it. I took Atwell's to Bradford, and the cold pinched my nostrils in that American Northeast way that says you should have bought the thicker scarf. The corner store's bell clanged when I went in. The owner, Mr. Klein, had sold penny candy to my son and wine to my mother, and never learned how to pretend he didn't know things. You're Eleanor's girl, he said. Sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said. Did you see a lot of my son's wife around the house the last few months? He made the face New Englanders make when they know something but feel impolite about it. All the time. Filming stuff on the porch, one of those tripods. Sometimes older ladies came by. Neighbors of yours? Her followers, I said, and felt the bitterness coat my tongue. She runs a channel. He pointed to the bodega camera perched like a tired bird in the corner. We caught some of the sidewalk, he said. If it helps. It did. On a grainy timestamp 4 days before the codicil, there was Jade, dragging Mom down the steps too fast. Mom clutching the rail and smiling that polite, let's go home smile. On another day, there was Jade filming a haul and shouting into the phone camera about caregiver must-haves while my mother's groceries warmed in the trunk. On another, there was a man I didn't recognize handing Jade an unmarked white envelope. Vendor? Mr. Klein said. Probably, I said, and couldn't decide whether to laugh or scream. At home, I assembled a war room on my kitchen table. Bank statements, care agency texts, fake invoices, bodega clips. I created a spreadsheet because you can take the case manager out of the hospital, but you cannot take the hospital out of the case manager. 4 columns: date, action, actor, impact. It made the chaos line up and sit still. When Lucas called, his contact photo filled the phone. 17 and sunburned, holding the bluefish he caught off Galilee. "Mom," he said, wary. "You okay?" "I'm working," I said. "How are you?" "Jade says you're upset." "Jade would know." Silence, the sound of traffic in the background. "Grandma wanted us to have stability," he said, like he was reading from an index card. "Did you see her sign the codicil?" "Jade took her to Dalrymple. I had a walkthrough on a job in Attleboro." "Lucas," I said gently. "Was Mom lucid that afternoon?" He blew out a breath. "I'm not doing this." "Doing what?" "Letting you make me choose." I could have told him that a choice had already been made. Instead, I said, "I'm building a timeline. I'm not going to court with feelings. I'm going with facts." "Mom," he said softer, "please, don't blow this up." I looked at the tidy rows I had built, each cell a small blade. "Then tell Jade to stop pretending she found me at a charity drive and adopted me." He laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "You always think the worst." The call ended. I let the quiet settle, then went back to work. Midnight again. The city beyond my window had the hush of constricted breath. At 12:17 a.m., I found the thing that made the room tilt. A Venmo feed, public by Jade's mistake, with transactions marked by cute emojis that become obscene if you can read. Consulting with a lock icon. Elder files with a folder emoji. Care PKG with a pill bottle. On September 19th, 2 days after the codicil, a $2,000 payment from an account named @Dalrymple Intern. 2 days later, a heart emoji back. I stared. The laptop screen threw cold light on my hands. It took a full minute to recognize the feeling that rose, a relief that had teeth. I had thought the rot was small, a private selfishness wrapped in pretty bows. But rot is social. It networks. It whispers down hallways. It gets internships coffee. I took a screenshot. Saved it twice. Printed it once. Then I wrote 3 words at the bottom of my spreadsheet in the impact column, all caps. Leverage exists now. How to build a bomb out of paper. The thing about an exposé is people think it's a blaze of glory. A single moment where you drop a file and everyone gasps. A courtroom speech, a mic drop at a dinner party. It isn't. It's patient carpentry. You shave edges until truths fit so tight they make a sound when you pull them apart. I got up at 6, made eggs, and texted my friend Grace in intake, who knows every hospital in a 30-mile radius like a cabbie knows side streets. Could she check if my mother was brought to any ERs in September? Grace didn't ask why. She didn't say she couldn't. She said, "I'll call you at lunch." By 8, I was at the Federal Hill House with a tape measure and a tote bag full of Post-its. The downstairs tenant, Mrs. Rossi, let me in with a look that said she had been waiting. Italians on the Hill had a way of holding information like a sacrament. "She rushed your mama," Mrs. Rossi said, leading me through the living room where the plastic slipcovers had outlived 2 popes. "Always moving, moving. Phone, phone, phone. No time for soup." "Did you ever see her ask my mother to sign anything?" "She take papers out of the big purse," Mrs. Rossi said. "Your mama, she say, later." Then I hear the girl laugh. "Now is better." I took notes. I measured the back door frame. The lock had been changed. The brass shone too new. I took a photo of the old key hanging useless on the hook shaped like a chicken. Upstairs, in the bedroom where the afternoon sun always found the cedar chest, I opened drawers that still smelled like my mother, lavender and laundry starch. Under a stack of church bulletins, I found a small spiral-bound notebook with careful block letters on the cover. Passwords plus important things. My mother hadn't been a fool. She had simply been old, which is to say, she had been busy dying while also trying to keep track of which app wanted a capital letter where. Inside, bank hints, Wi-Fi names, a 6-digit code labeled Ring, front porch camera. Next to it, underlined twice. Jade changed to her phone, asked Nora to fix. My mother's hand had grown shaky. The underline looked like a heartbeat spiking. I sat on the bed and breathed. The notebook went into my tote like a relic. My phone buzzed. Grace. Miriam Hospital. ED. Visit 917 for confusion. Discharged in 4 hours. Notes say family insisted PT was baseline. Intern name on triage. H. Dalrymple. The intern had been at the hospital the day Mom was confused. 2 days later, money from @Dalrymple intern hit Jade's Venmo. Carpentry, joint snug, sound when pulled. I asked Grace for the ED notes, and she sent me a PDF that made my mouth go dry. Patient escorted by granddaughter-in-law who spoke for her. Patient intermittently oriented, declines head CT. Family states confusion is normal with her coffee. The signature on discharge was a scribble, but the printed name below it was unfussy. Harrison Dalrymple, admin intern. I knew how this would play in a room, how the precise placement of those words could move a heart 1 inch, then another, until even people who liked Jade would feel their ribs tighten. At lunch, I walked into a stationery store off Thayer Street and bought a binder that made me feel like a trial lawyer. Black, thick rings, plastic sleeves that shine. The clerk slid it across the counter as if I were purchasing a sword. Back home, I ordered sections with the same joy some people reserve for strong wine. Section A, timeline, with cross-refs. Section B, financial anomalies, statements, highlights. Section C, fake invoices, metadata, properties. Section D, agency texts, Maria plus aid. Section E, video plus stills, bodega cam, porch camera notes. Section F, medical touchpoints, ER visit, discharge, triage intern. Section G, conflicts of interest, Venmo screenshots, intern identity. Section H, codicil, context, date proximity, capacity concerns. Section 1, recommendations, petition to set aside, request for independent counsel, fiduciary breach inquiry. And then, because I am my mother's daughter, I added a small appendix labeled Kindnesses Ignored. A photo of me holding her hand in a hospital chair with blue vinyl, time-stamped at 3:12 a.m., the recipe card in her hand for the stew that only turns out right if you brown the meat until it almost scares you. The birthday card she had meant for Lucas and never sent, the word proud underlined twice. This was not evidence, it was ballast. It kept the binder from floating away and becoming pure vengeance. At 3, I emailed Mr. Dalrymple's assistant and asked for a follow-up meeting to clarify the intent behind certain provisions. I CC'd no one. I wanted the silence to feel like a held breath. At 4, Jade posted a reel, her in a cream sweater, mug in both hands, talking about how caretaking had changed my entire heart. The caption, when you love, you choose. Every day, even when it's hard. Grief is heavy, but family is worth it. #caregiver, #girlboss, #legacy. Comments from strangers thanked her for her service. She liked each one as if dispensing absolution. I downloaded the reel in case she ever needed to see herself grieve on command. At 5, I took the binder to my friend Tasha, who teaches civics at the public high school and who can read a policy the way a jazz pianist reads a lead sheet. "You built a bomb," she said, flipping section F. "I built a map," I said. "But sure." She tapped the Venmo page with a pen. "You need more than eyebrows," she said. "This is suggestive. Get me a link between the intern and the codicil. Something dull. Calendars, emails. If you can show Jade scheduled the ER visit as a credential-building moment, before the meeting with his dad, then it becomes a story even the board will follow." "And board people sit on juries," Tasha said, "or on bar committees." I went home with the binder under my arm like a child you keep from traffic. I should have slept. Instead, I called my son. "Come to dinner," I said. "Mom." "No traps, just food." He came because he is the boy who, at 8, cried at a movie where the dog dies and then asked if we could get ice cream anyway. He came because he is still inside him somewhere. We ate pasta. He pushed it around like it had said something mean. I made him laugh with a story about a patient who tried to sneak a cat into the hospital in a gym bag and was caught only when the bag purred at the metal detector. When the plates were in the sink, I put the binder on the table between us. He looked at it like a siren had just started wailing. "I'm not trying to break your marriage," I said. "I'm trying to stop a theft." "Jade loves me," he said, but it was less conviction than weather. "I believe you love her," I said. "I believe she loves the mirror most." He opened the binder. He read section B, then C, then F. His face changed almost imperceptibly. A tightening around the mouth, a swallow he tried to hide. He stopped at the Venmo page. "She can explain this," he said. "I hope she tries," I said. "I'll bring popcorn." He closed the binder and rubbed the raw circle under his ring. "Mom," he said finally, "what do you want?" "I want my mother's house treated like the home she kept warm, not a brand asset. I want the codicil scrutinized by someone who isn't being tipped through emojis. I want a line drawn that says, 'We do not sell our elders' dignity for content.'" He stared at his hands. "If you go public." "I won't go TikTok viral," I said dryly. "I'm going to the bar association, the probate court, and the people Jade is most afraid of. Her followers, when they see what real caregiving looks like without filters." He winced. "You'll humiliate her." "She humiliated me at my mother's will reading," I said, and my voice went quiet in that way it does when the point moves from the room to the bone. "This is not revenge, Lucas. This is restoration." He stood to go, then hesitated. "There's something you should know," he said, not looking at me. "When Jade took Grandma to Dalrymple's office, she said he wasn't available. We met with Harrison. His father called in on speaker. And? Jade. She knew Harrison from a campus charity board. They DM'd before. A lot." "How much is a lot?" He scrubbed his face. "Enough that I told her it looked bad. She said I was threatened because he went to Brown." "You went to community college and built a career with your hands," I said. "I'm proud of that." He laughed once, brittle. "No one on Instagram is." When he left, I watched his taillights turn the corner, red beads vanishing into the dark. Then I opened my laptop and drafted 3 emails. To the Rhode Island Bar Association Ethics Hotline, with an innocuous subject line and an attachment named Timeline Questions PDF. To ElderCare-Pluss, spelled correctly, forwarding the fake invoices with a note. "Possible spoofing of your brand. Please advise on next steps. To Mr. Dalrymple himself. Following up codicil witness and capacity documentation. Before I hit send, I added a fourth, an RSVP to an event Jade had been flogging online all week. Her Care with Courage live workshop at a co-working space in the jewelry district. She called it a safe space to share grief and strategies. It was scheduled for Saturday at 3 p.m. The flyer had her face lit like a candle and a ticket price that made grief a luxury. I bought 2 tickets. The binder felt heavy in my hands. Heavy like something that, when dropped, would make a sound you couldn't ignore. Outside, the night threw snow at the streetlights in loose, angry handfuls. Inside, I made tea the way my mother had taught me and set an alarm for dawn. Because the bomb wasn't the binder. The bomb was me, walking into that room with my mother's voice in my pocket and telling the truth without blinking. The workshop and the trap. Saturday brought the kind of brittle sun that fools you into forgetting the air can slice. The jewelry district glittered like someone had polished it for a real estate brochure. I wore my mother's green scarf because it made me braver, and I carried the black binder in a canvas tote like a quiet verdict. The co-working space smelled like eucalyptus and ambition. A sign in a soft script font read, "Care with Courage," hosted by Jade Whitaker. Inside, a ring of stackable chairs faced a pull-down screen. A Bluetooth speaker pulsed with lo-fi beats engineered to sound sincere. Jade moved through the room like a cruise director who'd read one book about grief. Cream sweater, peach gloss halo, a lapel mic clipped to righteousness. "Nora!" she chirped, as if we were swapping recipes. "I'm so glad you came." "You sold me a ticket," I said. "2, actually," she said, eyes flicking to the empty chair beside me. "Lucas couldn't make it?" "He's framing a porch in Pawtucket." I sat in the back. Women trickled in. A 40-something in scrubs with dark circles she wore like medals. A teenager with a nose ring and a cardigan too thin for January. 2 church ladies from Federal Hill whose gossip ran on diesel. They all carried sorrow in different packaging. I felt suddenly protective of them, of the truth, of the word care. Jade dimmed the lights. The screen filled with slides, boundaries, self-care, advocacy. She spoke in a cadence that had been coached, equal parts TED and therapist. "Caregiving taught me the most powerful lesson," she said, palms open. "You can't pour from an empty cup." I thought of my mother standing at the sink, pouring tea, saying, "The heat needs a home." My cup was not empty. It was a forge. Jade clicked to a photo of her and my mother at that cafe, the one with mugs the size of small helmets. "Eleanor was my heart," she said, voice catching neatly. "We planned the future together." The church ladies shifted. One murmured, A hand went up. "Scrubs woman." "How did you manage the paperwork?" she asked, practical. "Hospitals, insurance, all that? I'm drowning." "Oh, honey," Jade said, magnanimous. "Delegation? Outsource what drains you. I used a concierge service for invoices. It's worth every penny." I felt my binder's weight tilt from my lap to my spine. The slide changed. Community over compliance in a font that made everything look like a pillow. When she opened the floor, I stood. The room's attention pivoted like birds. Jade smiled. "Let the hater speak." "I'm Nora," I said, voice steady. "Eleanor's daughter." A little gasp shimmered around the chairs. Jade's smile tightened 0.5 millimeter. "Of course," she said brightly. "Nora and I have been working through things." I walked to the front and set the binder on a stool. "I wanted to share something practical," I said, flipping to section C, fake invoices. The PDF properties glowed on the screen when I mirrored my laptop. Exported 1:07 a.m. by JM. A controlled murmur rippled through the room. "This is an invoice Jade sent my mother," I said, "from ElderCare-Pluss, with 2 S's. The real company doesn't spell it that way." Jade laughed, a brittle tink. "Nora, this isn't helpful. We can talk later." "We will," I said, and clicked to Section F, the ER notes from Miriam Hospital. The discharge summary filled the screen, clinical and unadorned. Patient intermittently oriented. Family insists baseline. Triage intern. Harrison Dalrymple. "On the day before my mother signed a codicil changing her will," I said to the room. "She was evaluated for confusion. The intern listed here is the son of the lawyer who drafted that codicil. 2 days after the codicil, Jade received a $2,000 Venmo payment from @ Dalrymple intern labeled with a lock emoji. The air thinned. Grief rooms are sensitive to oxygen. Scrubs woman sat straighter. The church ladies stopped pretending not to listen. "I'm not accusing anyone of a crime," I said. "I'm describing a timeline." Jade moved to stand between me and the screen, as if her body could redact pixels. "Eleanor wanted stability," she said, pitch rising. This is harassment." "Harassment is charging an 81-year-old woman overnight care when I was literally the body in the chair," I said gently. "Harassment is changing locks and passwords and calling that love." "Turn off the projector," Jade snapped at the co-working staffer. "This event is about healing." The staffer looked at me, then at the women in the chairs who were watching with a hunger that wasn't cruel. It was the hunger of finally seeing something named. The projector stayed on. A teenager in the second row raised her hand like a shy flag. "My stepdad did that to my grandma," she said quietly. "Said he was helping. We didn't know we could track it." "You can," I said. "Every text, every receipt. Dates matter." I closed the binder and met every eye I could. "If anyone here needs help building a timeline, I will sit with you. For free." Something passed through the room. Relief, maybe, or the sudden rearrangement of power when a narrative shatters and people realize the pieces can be used as tools. Jade's smile cracked so cleanly I could almost hear it. "Get out," she whispered, then louder. "Get out!" I picked up my tote. At the door, I turned back. "I brought 2 tickets," I said. "I'll leave the extra. Maybe Harrison will want to come next time." The church ladies cackled like they'd been waiting all week to do it. Scrubs woman followed me into the hall. "I've got 4 years of mess," she said, breathless. "Can you really help me?" "Yes," I said. "Bring coffee. We'll need a table." By the time I hit the sidewalk, my phone was buzzing like a wasp nest. Lucas. 6 missed calls. I answered the 7th. "What did you do?" he said, voice shredded. "Told the truth." "She's crying in the car," he snapped. "People were filming. Maybe the algorithm will finally earn its keep. Mom." "I'm here," I said, softer. "Where are you?" "In the parking lot," he said, voice dropping. "She threw her mic at me." "Come to the house," I said. "I'll make tea." He hung up. I put the binder back in the tote. The sun slid behind a cloud, and the street looked like a set after the actors have left, the tape on the floor still marking their marks. I had not blown anything up. I had simply lit the room, and sometimes that is worse. Ethics, escrows, and escalation. Monday broke with a ping. Ethics Inquiry, Rhode Island Bar. The reply was clipped and cautious. full of phrases like initial review and if substantiated. They asked for documentation and invited me to schedule a confidential call. The email ended with, "Please do not share this communication publicly until we can ascertain facts." I smiled. I had no desire to go viral. I wanted due process to do what it says on the tin. I forwarded the packet, then sent ElderCare-Pluss the doctored invoices. Their reply arrived inside an hour, outraged and corporate. "We have not billed Eleanor Whitaker for any overnight services. We are initiating a fraud investigation. Please provide contact info for Ms. Moreno Whitaker, so our legal team may." The ellipsis did a lot of work. I made coffee and opened my bank app. There was a deposit from Lucas, town $200, with a note that said, "For heat bill." No emoji. I stared at it for a long time. He had always tried to repair with money what he didn't know how to fix with words. I let the deposit sit, a small white flag I wasn't ready to wave or burn. At noon, the phone rang again. Mr. Dalrymple's assistant, voice pitched to sound like nothing mattered. "Mr. Dalrymple would like to schedule a meeting to discuss your concerns about your mother's codicil." "Both Dalrymples?" I asked, a beat. "Harrison is not an attorney. But he was present for the codicil logistics and appears repeatedly in my mother's medical records that week. He can come as a private citizen." "Mr. Dalrymple Sr. prefers to limit the meeting to principal parties," she said. "Then I'll see him at probate," I said pleasantly, "and at the bar committee." Silence like a held breath. "Wednesday at 10 a.m.? "Perfect," I said. "I'm bringing a witness." Tasha put on a blazer that made her look like a storm cloud and met me in the lobby of the Dalrymple firm. A space so white, it felt like dental work. The receptionist offered cucumber water, as if it could dampen what we carried. We weren't 10 minutes into the meeting before Mr. Dalrymple's eyelids started to twitch. "These are serious allegations," he said, heavy with disapproval. "They're serious facts," Tasha said. "Allegations would be prettier." He steepled his fingers at me. "Your mother had capacity," he said. "Her physician, Dr. Bell, signed a letter to that effect." "Dated?" I asked. "Because Dr. Bell retired in August." He blinked. I slid Section F across the table. "Miriam Hospital, September 17th. Confusion. Discharge against medical advice at the insistence of family. Family that included your son." "I had no knowledge of my son's involvement," he said, which was not a denial so much as a path to one. "If Harrison paid Miss Moreno Whitaker for services, that is his private business." "Then he will be pleased to explain it under oath," Tasha said, almost kindly. "As will your notary," he exhaled through his nose. "What is it you want, Miss Whitaker?" "Set aside the codicil pending independent capacity assessment and fiduciary review," I said. "Appoint a neutral trustee for the property, and I want your son nowhere near my family's documents." "That's quite a list." "It's shorter than the one I brought," I said. He glanced toward the glass wall where associates drifted like well-tailored ghosts. "Give me a week." "You have until Friday at 5, Tasha said. "Then we file." On the way down in the elevator, Tasha leaned back against the mirror. "You ever notice how rich men's eyebrows are always so well maintained?" "I notice how they use them to tell you gravity doesn't apply," I said. "Girl," she said, "you are a sermon." Back at my apartment, I found Lucas on my stoop, hood up, face blotched with the kind of cry men try to swallow. "She threw a mug at the wall," he said without preamble. "Says I humiliated her. Says I chose you." "You told the truth," I said. "There isn't a side to that." "I found her phone open," he said, voice thin. "DMs with Harrison. Months. Some flirty, some gross. And there was a draft in her notes app, talking points for a brand collab about navigating toxic in-laws. I let my breath out slowly. I'm sorry. He looked up. Are you? For you? Always, I said. For the rupture? Also yes. Infection hates air. He laughed once, scraped raw. She said Grandma promised her the house if she promised to manage you. The room spun a degree. Manage me? Keep you away, he said, eyes wet again. Make it easier. She said Grandma found you intense. I took that like a punch I could survive. My mother had been human. She had been tired. She had also known where the camera code was and written, "Ask Nora to fix." Love is not a straight line. It's a map with coffee stains. Come in, I said. I'll make stew. As the kitchen filled with the iron smell of browning meat, Lucas scrolled through the DMs with hands that shook. He invited her to a legal happy hour, he said. She said she had a better idea. He looked up, jaw tight. She asked him for a capacity letter template. I stopped stirring. She what? Here, he said, turning the phone. The screen glowed with the words that change families. Do you have a template for doctors to sign off on capacity? Want to make sure we're covered. A heart emoji. A wink. My stomach went cold. Forward everything to yourself, I said. Then print it twice. He did. We ate stew at the small table like we were refugees at the end of an empire. After, he wiped his bowl with bread the way he did when he was 8, and I had to look away. What if I lose her? He asked quietly. What if I lose everything? You already kept the only thing that matters, I said. Yourself. He nodded as if that were a thing he could put in his pocket and touch when the room got wobbly. At 9, the heat kicked on with a metallic cough. At 9:05, my phone pinged. A new email. Fraud investigation, ElderCare-Pluss. They were filing a police report. They had requested camera footage from the block. They had discovered Jade had used a clone domain to invoice 2 other elders in our zip code. I closed my eyes. The air felt full of snow, even though the sky was clear. Friday came like a blade. At 4:12 p.m., Mr. Dalrymple emailed, We will stipulate to an independent review of the codicil and consent to a temporary neutral trustee for the property at 38 Bradford. We categorically deny any impropriety by this firm. Harrison has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal review. I read it 3 times, the way you read a diagnosis to make sure it's your name on the chart. I called Tasha. We got the temporary trustee, I said. And a scalp, she said. 2, if you count the intern's ego. Don't scalp him, I said, but it came out tired. Baby, she said, soft now. You just yanked the curtain. The wizard is a boy with a badge printer. I stood at the window watching the streetlights click on, one by one, like witnesses raising their hands. Across town, a life was collapsing in a glossy apartment where everything had been purchased to be seen. In my kitchen, a pot soaked in the sink, and the scent of stew clung to my sweater like proof of work. We had leverage. We had time. We had Friday. Sometimes, justice is not a gavel. It's a calendar reminder with a check mark next to it. The night before the hearing. The probate hearing was set for Monday. The weekend hung like a held note. Providence put on a bright blue sky, as if to say it had done its part. I spent Saturday building Section 1, recommendations into legal language a judge could love. I spent Sunday cleaning, the house, the binder tabs, the story. I stopped to touch my mother's green scarf where it hung by the door. The knit had loosened a little, the way fabric does when it's been asked to hold too much. At dusk, Lucas texted, "I'm at the house." She left. 1 minute later. She took some things. The pearl studs. Another. She posted a reel about escaping abuse. Comments are wild. I opened the reel. Jade, tearful and bare-faced, spoke to camera in a voice she had honed like a knife. Sometimes, the people who should protect you become your prison. I'm choosing courage. Please respect my privacy. The comments were a chorus of algorithmic empathy. Hearts. Fire emojis. A woman said her mother-in-law was a narcissist too. Someone else advised a restraining order. A brand offered Jade a discount code for weighted blankets. I closed the app and opened the group chat I had made with the church ladies after the workshop. Federal Hill aunties had already dissected the reel with surgical precision. Auntie Rosa. She cried without tears. That's acting. Auntie Nunzia. She took our parking spot last week. That was my restraining order. Auntie Rosa. We are coming to court. Wear black. I smiled so hard my face hurt. At 10, the doorbell rang. Not Lucas. Tasha, in sweats and a hoodie, carrying a Tupperware of lemon squares like an offering to gods who prefer sugar. I brought courage food, she said, shouldering in. Also, my cousin in IT looked up at Dalrymple intern. The Venmo was linked to his school email. We got screenshots. Is that legal? I asked, taking the Tupperware. It's moral, she said. We'll let the ethics board split hairs. We spread the new screenshots on the table. Payments. Notes. A calendar invite from Jade titled Capacity Day. Bring flowers. My stomach lurched. Flowers? I said. For what? The ER? For the notary photo, Tasha said grimly. Optics. I pressed my fingers to my eyes until stars sparked. She turned my mother into content. She tried, Tasha said. You turned her into a human again. I rinsed 2 mugs and made tea. Steam rose, smelled like every winter I'd survived. Tell me the worst part, I said suddenly, because sometimes the spell only breaks if you name the monster. Say it. Tasha didn't blink. The worst part is that a part of your mother probably did want Jade's attention. Because she's shiny. Because she showed up with a camera when everyone else was tired. The worst part is that manipulation wears kindness like a coat and is very warm until you realize it's made of someone else's skin. We sat with that. You're still allowed to love your mother, Tasha added softly, and miss her, and be furious. I'm allowed to miss the parts that were true, I said. You are, she said, and tomorrow you get to say them out loud. When she left, I could not sleep, so I did what my training taught me. I rehearsed a discharge plan for grief. Step 1, accept that sorrow is not a malfunction. Step 2, choose one concrete action. Step 3, eat something. Step 4, tell the truth even when your voice shakes. Step 5, document everything, including tenderness. At 2 a.m., my phone vibrated. A blocked number. I answered because ghosts don't leave messages. Nora? A male voice, careful. This is Harrison. I sat up. How did you get my number? Your son, he said quickly. He said I should talk to you, not my father. You should talk to the ethics board, I said. I will, he said. But listen, I didn't know. Not at first. The Venmos, they were for, she called it consulting. She said she was building a non-profit for eldercare. She said, he exhaled raggedly. She said you were unstable, that Eleanor needed protection. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to keep him talking until dawn. Why are you calling me? Because it got out of hand, he said. Because I found an email she wrote to herself, talking points about leveraging mom guilt for engagement. Because my father thinks he can fix this by capitulating on probate. And I think you should know he's already negotiating a quiet resignation for me. He sounded like a boy who finally sees the house is on fire and realizes he helped stack the kindling. I pressed my palm to the cool porcelain of the mug on my nightstand. What do you want, Harrison? To say I'm sorry, he said, and I believed him, which is not the same as forgiving. And to give you this. A pause. An audio file hit my messages. VM, yes, Septi 17, Dalrymple. Wave. It's my voicemail from that night, he said. Jade left it. I saved it because it felt wrong. The audio clicked and hissed in my ear, the cheap fidelity of late-night calls. Then Jade's voice. Hey, H, quick Q, do you have that capacity letter template? We're at the ER now. Eleanor's being stubborn. Want to get ahead of paperwork. Also, LOL, if you know a notary who takes cute pics, LMK. I didn't realize I'd stood up until my knee hit the nightstand. Why give this to me? I asked. Because it's the right thing, he said, and then in a small voice that didn't match his resume. Because I want to be the kind of person who does one right thing, at least. We'll see, I said, and hung up. The room was very quiet. The clock on the stove blinked a stubborn green 2:11. I sat on the floor and let the sound of my own breath prove I was still here. At 7, I put on my black suit, my mother's green scarf, and my face. At 8, the Federal Hill aunties texted a photo. 3 women in funeral black, chin up, lips set. We bring biscotti, Auntie Rosa wrote, for strength. At 9, Lucas picked me up. He looked like a man who had learned something hard and decided to keep living anyway. We drove to the courthouse with the radio off. The city looked washed and waiting. At 9:48, I stood outside the probate courtroom with Tasha, binder in hand, voicemail file cued, heart steady as a metronome in a song that knows how it ends. I was not here to win the internet. I was here to win a house, a line in a ledger, a line in a life. The bailiff opened the door. Next case, he called. We walked in. I walked in, and for the first time since that day in the lawyer's office, I felt not shamed or small, but exactly the size I've always been. A woman with a spine, a binder, and a mother who taught her to warm the mug before she pours. The hearing, where paper spoke probate court in Providence, looks like a church that took a law class. The ceiling's too reverent, the pews too hard, the seal so solemn it makes you sit up straight. The judge, Honorable Marisol Vega, wore the kind of calm that makes other people stop fidgeting. I liked her immediately, if only because she didn't glance at the clock like courage had a time slot. Dalrymple Sr. sat 2 tables over, jaw clenched to a perfect hinge. Harrison was absent. A partner I didn't recognize occupied the second chair with the serenity of a man hired to be scenery. Our neutral trustee, a woman named Angela Kwan with a bun that could cut glass, sat behind me with a slim folder on her knees. Lucas took the aisle seat, hands folded, eyes fixed on his shoes like they held instructions. On the petition to suspend the September codicil pending capacity review, Judge Vega said, voice warm steel. We'll proceed on proffers and exhibits. If I need testimony, I'll ask for it. Dalrymple rose. Your Honor, this is a grieving daughter seeking to weaponize. Rumor wears a suit today, Tasha murmured, sliding Section F to the clerk. I stayed seated. You only stand when you're asked. The clerk carried our binder forward like a crown on a pillow. Judge Vega read. I watched her eyes move the way you watch a storm track, calculating wind, weighing the cost of crops. She paused at the ER note. She frowned at the Venmo screenshots. When she reached the PDF properties on the fake invoices, she made that small, private sound judges make when their patience hardens. "Counsel," she said to Dalrymple, "why is your intern's name in the patient's triage, and why did money change hands 2 days later?" "Respectfully, Your Honor, I can't litigate my son's private life in open court." "You're not," Judge Vega said. "You're litigating credibility." "We categorically deny." "Of course you do," she said mildly and turned to me. "Ms. Whitaker, your proffered audio file?" I nodded to Tasha. She cued the voicemail. The room filled with that tinny late-night hiss, and then Jade's voice, bright and obscene. "Capacity letter template. At the ER now. Notary who takes cute pics." It's a special kind of silence when an entire courtroom decides it's embarrassed on behalf of a person who doesn't know how to be. The clerk scratched something on his pad to avoid making eye contact with anyone. Lucas's shoulders rose once and didn't come down. Dalrymple straightened, red creeping up his neck. "Your Honor, we object to the admission." "You object to the existence," Judge Vega said. "So noted." I stayed very still. I wanted to punch air. Instead, I watched the judge's pen underline dates the way a river underlines a floodplain. "Here's where we are," she said finally. "I'm suspending the effect of the September codicil pending an independent capacity evaluation by a physician I will appoint. I am also appointing Ms. Kwan as temporary trustee with full control over the property at 38 Bradford. All rents and expenses will flow through her. No party is to alter locks, utilities, or occupancy without court approval." Dalrymple opened his mouth. She lifted a finger. "Additionally, I am referring the matter of possible conflicts involving the Dalrymple firm to the Rhode Island Bar for review. I will not prejudge the facts, but I will not ignore smoke in this courtroom." The gavel was almost unnecessary. The sound she made with her voice did the job. On the way out, I felt a hand graze my sleeve. "Angela Kwan. We'll inventory the house this afternoon," she said. "Come if you want." "I want," I said. Lucas caught up on the steps. "Mom," he said, hoarse. You don't owe me an apology for her choices," I said. "But thank you for standing still long enough to see them." He nodded once, hard. Down on Dorrance Street, the Federal Hill aunties waited by the curb like a deployed unit. Nunzia pressed a paper bag into my hands. "Biscotti," she said, "for the judge." "She already gave me the only cookie I need," I said, and the women cackled until the cold clipped it short. By 3, we were at the house. Angela worked like a metronome, room by room, item by item, photographs taken with a small camera, notes written in neat, clinical script. She opened the cedar chest and paused. "Do you recognize this?" she asked, lifting a flat, wrapped parcel tied with the kind of thin red ribbon you buy at Christmas and then use for everything. I did not. My name was on the tag in my mother's careful block letters, Nora, evenly spaced. It was heavy, like paper and not like dishes. Angela handed me a small knife. "Open," she said. "We'll log it." Inside was a binder, older, blue-backed, tabs made of masking tape. On the first page, my mother's handwriting. "If anything happens, important." Below it, a list of account numbers I already knew, and 3 lines I didn't. Safe deposit key, cookie jar, crack under lid. Letter to Nora, top dresser drawer. Lady Bird deed info, see folder. I sat down on the floor like my knees had learned a new verb. "Lady Bird?" Angela asked. "Enhanced life estate," I said, voice small. "Sometimes used to keep property out of probate. Rhode Island doesn't use that name, but I swallowed. She was researching. Angela's face didn't change. Trustees learned to keep their weather private, but her pen moved faster. We'll locate the key, she said, and the letter. In the bedroom? I said, standing with the kind of care you bring to cradles and explosives. The letter lay under the socks that had given my mother's ankles the faith to go on one more winter. My name on the envelope again. I didn't open it. Not yet. Angela logged it, photographed it, handed it back. Opens tonight, she said, and I nodded like we had made a pact. We found the safe deposit key in the cookie jar, where my mother had hidden loose bills since the Clinton years. We found a folder labeled Deeds and Ideas with printouts from elder law websites, notes in the margins. Ask Nora underlined 3 times by a hand that had still wanted the future. In the back room, by the radiator that clanked at inopportune times, we found another thing. A brand new set of locks in a bag with a receipt. Dated 2 days after the codicil. Paid in cash. I held the bag like a photo of a lover gone to seed. Document, Angela said. We did. On the porch, as the sky went pewter, Lucas sat with his head in his hands. She's posting again, he said, showing me his phone. Jade's new reel, a slideshow of bruises that could have been shadows, a long caption about toxic matriarchs and financial abuse. A Cash App link at the end. If you want to support my healing journey. The donations scrolled like a slot machine. Turn it off, I said gently, for 1 hour. He did, like a boy who finally wants to sleep. I put the envelope in my bag next to my mother's green scarf. At home that night, I made tea, warmed the mug, and opened the letter with a butter knife. Paper rasped like a match. Nora, if you're reading this, I got scared and did something foolish. I let a pretty girl rush me. I let the sound of her phone tell me what love is. I wanted to be modern. I wanted to be seen. I meant the house for you. Not because you deserve it more, because you are the only one who knows where the towels live and which window sticks in spring and how to winterize the faucets. Because you will not sell the lilac. I couldn't get the deed right without you, so I put the key in the jar and hoped you would find the rest. Forgive me for the mess. Forgive me for being 81 and vain. Love, always, even when I'm tired. Mom. I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest, the way a child presses a bandage just to feel something hold. The house was a legal fight. The letter was a map through the living part. I slid the letter into Section H behind the codicil. Then I put out the light. Tomorrow, we'd need to be mean and clean again. Tonight, I let myself weep like a faucet that finally unfroze. When the internet turned and the bank spoke by Wednesday, Jade's reels had metastasized into a full-blown narrative. She was the saint, I was the witch. Lucas was a man in recovery from my control. The algorithm did what it always does, put a spotlight on the loudest theater kid and called it news. Then the algorithm did something else. Scrub's woman from the workshop, her name was Denise, stitched Jade's video and calmly, methodically, pulled it apart. You can care for someone and still be accountable, she said. You can be grieving and still be grifting. She linked to a thread where women from our zip code cataloged fake invoices they'd been sent under the ElderCare-Pluss alias. The thread trended in a small, stubborn way that felt like a neighborhood remembering its own phone numbers. By noon, ElderCare-Pluss posted a statement. We have identified an impersonation scheme targeting elders in Providence. We are working with law enforcement. If you believe you were affected, please contact our hotline. They did not name Jade. They didn't have to. The comments did it for them. At 2, my phone rang. Angela. Ms. Whitaker, she said, as if we were in an elevator about to decide whose floor to stop at. Bank reached out. There was an application to refinance 38 Bradford pending the week after the codicil, a cash-out refi. It didn't go through because the title search flagged an old lien that was never properly satisfied. The application lists Lucas as primary, Ms. Moreno Whitaker as co-applicant. My stomach swung into my knees. Lucas didn't. The signature looks like his, Angela said. We'll have the lab compare, but the bank's fraud department is already curious. Would you like me to loop them in with ElderCare-Pluss? Yes, I said, tasting metal. Yes, please. At 4, Lucas arrived at my apartment holding a manila envelope like a burning coal. A process server gave me this at the job site, he said, voice flat. Jade filed for a restraining order. For what? I asked. For narrative, he said, and his mouth twisted into a laugh that wanted to be a sob. She says I'm controlling, that you're coaching me, that you're stalking her brand. I put on tea because that is what I do when the world is imploding. Give the heat a home. We'll answer, I said. We have receipts, including one with a notary who takes cute pictures. He dropped into a chair. I was blind, he said. I don't know if I was in love or just tired. Both, I said. Most marriages run on that cocktail. His phone vibrated. He didn't look. Mine vibrated. I did. A message from an unknown number containing a photo I recognized instantly, even though I had never seen it. My mother at a bank counter, pen in hand, Jade at her elbow, lips parted in an O of faux encouragement. The timestamp branded the corner. The teller's nameplate peeked into the frame like a witness too shy to wave. Unknown, bank cam pull, friend in fraud, use if needed. Who sent it? Lucas asked. An angel with decent OPSEC, I said. We slid the photo into Section B next to the cash withdrawals. The story clicked again, another tooth in the gear. By 6, the Rhode Island bar had emailed. We have opened a formal inquiry. By 7, my inbox chimed with a message from a local reporter who covers elder abuse for public radio. Off the record, do you have time to talk about caregiver impersonation scams? I stared at the ceiling. I did not want to become a cause. I wanted my mother's towels to keep smelling like lavender. Not yet, I wrote back. Call me after the trustee's interim report. At 8, Jade's tone shifted. The Cash App link disappeared. The captions got vaguer. She posted a photo of a sunset that could have been anywhere. Her followers began to ask questions she did not like. At 10, Harrison texted, not call, not email, text, like a boy who'd been grounded by the century. Ethics Board reached out. I'm meeting them Friday. I'm resigning Monday. I'm sorry again. I typed and deleted 3 replies and then went with the only one I could live with. Bring the truth. He sent a single dot, as if acknowledging a sound he could finally hear. Thursday morning, Angela filed her interim report with the court. A copy hit my inbox at 10:04 a.m., and I read it 3 times. Her language was icily beautiful. Facts lined up like glass soldiers. Significant anomalies in cash withdrawals, attempted refinance post-codicil, apparent impersonation of health agency in billing. It ended with a recommendation. Maintain suspension of codicil. Initiate forensic accounting. Enjoin any sale or encumbrance. Judge Vega signed the order at 3:12 p.m. By dinner, the house, my mother's house, the one with the lilac determined to live after everyone had stopped asking it to, was safe in a way that mattered on paper. Do you ever feel like the fight is using you for cardio? Tasha asked, dropping by with a rotisserie chicken and a look that said, eat. All the time, I said, tearing a drumstick. But my lungs are better. She grinned. Your metaphors have iron now. At midnight, I lay in bed listening to the Radiator song. I tried to rehearse joy. It's not easy. Grief is a muscle, joy a bird. You have to hold very still for it to land. Somewhere across town, Jade filmed something she would delete in the morning. Somewhere in a brownstone, Dalrymple Sr. stared at a framed diploma and wondered which part of the frame was the weakest. Somewhere in an apartment with drywall dust in its hair, my son slept like a person who had done one true thing and might manage another tomorrow. I dreamed I was in my mother's kitchen. The kettle screamed. I poured boiling water into a cup I had not warmed. The mug cracked down the middle. I woke with my heart in my throat and the taste of ceramic dust in my mouth. In the dark, I said it out loud because sometimes that's the only way a promise sticks. I will not let them call theft love. The radiator hissed like agreement. The letter within the letter. The next hearing was set for 2 weeks out, a status conference that would likely be boring unless we made it interesting. In the meantime, Angela scheduled the safe deposit box inventory for Friday. We met at the bank where my mother flirted with the pixie-cut teller back when the world seemed simple because we were younger and didn't know where the trapdoors were yet. Angela signed a clipboard. I signed a clipboard. A manager with an underbite unlocked a vault door that moaned like a theater curtain. Box 713 slid out of the wall with a weight that suggested secrets are made of tungsten. We carried it to a small room where people cry in polite, expensive tones. Angela set a recorder on the table and read an oath into the air. Commencing inventory of safe deposit box 713, belonging to Eleanor Whitaker, deceased. Present, trustee Angela Kwan, beneficiary Nora Whitaker. She lifted the lid. Inside, in neat stacks, war bonds that time had turned into confetti of value. My father's watch wrapped in a handkerchief that smelled faintly of Old Spice, and a man who kept promises until he couldn't anymore. And envelopes. 3 thick ones, 1 thin. Angela logged each item aloud. My ears rang with the hum of old paper. She reached for the thin envelope last. It was addressed to me in my mother's hand again, but smaller, as if she'd been tired when she wrote it. On the back, a note. For Nora, plus Judge, if needed. May I? Angela asked. I nodded. She slid a letter opener under the flap and frowned. From the envelope, she withdrew a single sheet and a thumb drive the color of cheap lipstick. Read it, I said. Angela did. If a judge is reading, I want to be very clear. The girl with the camera rushed me. She said timelines. She said future-proof. I signed something because I wanted lunch and the pen was already in my hand. I told her to slow down. I told her I needed my daughter. She told me Nora was busy. If you decide I had my wits, then I want your wits too. Give my house to Nora. She is the one who will not sell the lilac. Eleanor. Angela set the paper down like it was live. The thumb drive winked like a sly moon. We'll have that image this, she said. Or we can look now, I said, pulse speeding. They have a terminal for customers. Angela weighed the professional against the impatient and then nodded. We'll make a mirror copy later. For now, we preview. The terminal groaned awake. The drive contained 3 files. A scanned letter identical to the one we'd just read. A PDF titled deedinfo.ri.pdf. And a video file named VID0919 MOV. No, I whispered. Or maybe yes. Angela clicked. The frame opened on my mother's bedroom. The camera angle was high. Maybe the dresser mirror propped just so. My mother sat on the bed, cardigan green, hair set the way she liked for church. She looked into the camera with that thing I'd always wanted to bottle, her plain honesty. If anyone's watching later, she said, please remember I do not like cameras. She folded her hands. "The pretty girl is helpful sometimes," she said. "She brings almond milk, which I do not like, but she says it photographs better. She says my daughter is tired and I should not bother her with paperwork. I think this is foolish because Nora enjoys paperwork. She makes lists for breakfast." I barked a laugh that felt like a sob. "I am writing down where the cookies are and where the key is, and that the codfish will be on sale at Venda on Friday so Nora can make a proper stew," she said. "I am also saying this. The house is for Nora. If I sign something else this week, it is because the pen jumped." She leaned forward toward the camera. "Nora," she said, "warm the mug." Angela clicked pause. The room hummed. "I can't," I started. "You can," Angela said, putting a hand on the back of my chair. "And you will. In court." She copied the files to her encrypted drive. We packed the box. We signed the clipboards again. We walked outside into noon that was too bright for people carrying truth. On the sidewalk, my phone vibrated with the insistent energy of a child who has discovered his own hands. Public radio had aired a segment on caregiver impersonation scams. Denise had given a measured interview. ElderCare-Pluss's director had spoken in a voice like a sawed violin. The anchor invited emails. Forwarded the video to Tasha with 3 words. "We have her." Her reply was instant. "No. You have you. You just also have tape." The status conference Monday was short because Judge Vega liked facts arranged like furniture that never wobbles. Angela summarized her interim report, then held up the letter from the safe deposit box without waving it like a flag. "We'll move to admit," she said softly. "And a video recorded by decedent, authenticated by timestamp and device ID." Dalrymple Sr.'s face did a thing expensive faces don't like to do. It sagged. He stood, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, in light of newly surfaced materials, we will not oppose the continued suspension of the codicil. We further consent to an evidentiary hearing to determine capacity and intent." Judge Vega nodded. "Good," she said. "We'll call witnesses. We'll hear from Dr. Bell. We'll hear from Ms. Moreno Whitaker. We'll hear from anyone with a camera who thought it was a tool." She angled her head. "And we'll hear from Mr. Harrison Dalrymple." Dalrymple's eyelid flickered. "He will cooperate," he said tightly. Outside, the January sun had the audacity to sparkle. The aunties were waiting with thermoses of coffee. Denise hugged me like we'd fought in the same trench. "You did it," she said. "I started," I said. "Now we finish." Lucas stood beside me, quiet and steady. "She took down her reels," he said. "All of them." "Screenshots live forever," I said. He nodded. "I know." We walked to the car with our hands empty for the first time in weeks. It felt dangerous and good, like crossing a street without waiting for the light because you can see the road is clear. At home, I put my mother's letter on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lighthouse. I made tea. I warmed the mug until the heat had a home. Then I opened a new section in the binder. Section J, Evidentiary Hearing Prep. Direct. Cross under it, I wrote 3 names, Dr. Bell, Harrison, Jade, and a 4th I hadn't admitted out loud until now. Me. Because I was going to testify to the small things that make up a life. The sticky window, the towels, the lilac. And because sometimes a judge needs to hear that love is not a caption. It is a thermostat you check at 3 a.m. and a mug you warm because grief already makes things too cold. I sharpened a pencil as if that small, clean edge could cut the fog that still hung around the edges of the story. Then I did the thing that got me this far. I wrote down what happened, in order, with dates, with names, with the heat left on. The day truth grew teeth, The evidentiary hearing moved faster than anyone in the gallery expected. Judge Vega stacked time like bricks. Witness, exhibit, question, answer. No speeches, no fog. Dr. Bell came first, a small man in a winter suit that had seen more Januaries than he cared to count. He settled into the witness chair as if he'd been lowered there by pulleys and patience. "Doctor," Judge Vega said, "did you provide a letter of capacity concerning Eleanor Whitaker in September?" "No, Your Honor," he said, voice rasped with the gravel of old authority. "I retired in August. I did write a general capacity note in June for purposes of renewing her DMV handicap placard. That note referenced her baseline at that time: clear, oriented, independent in decision-making with support. It was not a blanket permission slip for the future." Tasha slid a document to the clerk. "Doctor, is Defense Exhibit 12 the June note you're referring to?" He peered, adjusted his glasses, nodded. "June. And this, Proponent's Exhibit C, is the capacity attestation attached to the September codicil. Is that your signature?" He studied the page longer. "It looks like my scrawl," he said slowly. "But the formatting is not my clinic's, and the date is after I retired." "Did anyone ask you for a template for such a letter?" Tasha asked. He looked directly at Dalrymple and then back at the judge. "A young woman called me in early September, said she was coordinating care. She asked if I had a capacity form she could work from. I told her capacity is observed, not templated, and that Ms. Whitaker's daughter should be in the room." The woman hung up. "Can you identify that woman?" "I can't swear to it," he said, "but I remember a bright, breathy voice, the way sales reps sound when they bring donuts." His eyes cut to Jade. "Your witness," Judge Vega said. Dalrymple rose. "Doctor, perhaps your recollection. I remember daughters," Dr. Bell said mildly. "I remember the ones who bring medication lists on yellow legal pads and correct my spelling of Lasix, and I remember who wasn't there." Harrison followed by subpoena, his resignation letter already circulating in the city's invisible mail. He looked deflated and, for the first time, uncoached. "Mr. Dalrymple," Tasha said, voice even, "you received and sent money to Ms. Moreno Whitaker contemporaneous to a codicil your father's firm handled. What were those funds for?" He swallowed. "She called it consulting, social media strategy for a nonprofit." "Read the Venmo note on September 19th, Tasha said. He closed his eyes. "Lock emoji." "And the voicemail?" she asked, cueing the tinny file. "Capacity letter template. Notary who takes cute pics." The words landed differently now. Less gossip, more fuse. "Did you provide a template?" "I forwarded examples from my law school ethics class," he said miserably. "It was theoretical. I didn't think—" "Thinking is the job," Judge Vega said, not unkindly. Then came the banker from the credit union, a woman in a navy blazer with the calm of someone who could balance a ledger in a hurricane. She authenticated the surveillance still of my mother, with a pen in her hand and Jade at her elbow. She walked the court through the cash withdrawals, the flagged refinance, the signature that did not quite behave like Mr. Whitaker's signature behaves. "People do not sign the same way every time," she conceded, "but they do make the same mistakes or finish the same curls. This signature tries to be Mr. Whitaker's, but forgets his peculiar way of crossing a T. He drags it too long, like a carpenter's tape." Lucas sat small in the second row. When he looked at me, I mouthed, "Breathe." He did. Jade's turn crept up like a migraine. She swore the oath with a hand that didn't know where to land afterward. In the chair, without ring light or soft filter, she looked like any 29-year-old who had built a house out of followers and was suddenly asked for a mortgage. Ms. Moreno Whitaker, Tasha said, when you asked for a capacity letter template, why did you need it? I was trying to protect Eleanor's wishes, she said, voice pitched towards sympathy. Whose wishes were those? Tasha asked. Yours? Or the woman who said on video the house was for her daughter? Jade's chin jerked. You're cherry-picking. That's what pies are for, Tasha said, not smiling. On September 17th, you accompanied Ms. Whitaker to the emergency department. Why did you insist she was baseline? She was fine with me, Jade said brightly. Confusion is relative. Auntie Rosa coughed, ha! Into her glove. The bailiff's mouth twitched. Why did you clone ElderCare-Pluss invoices? Tasha asked. I didn't, Jade said too quickly. Tasha clicked to the PDF properties, my favorite form of blood sport. Exported at 1:07 a.m. by JM on a phone registered to your Apple ID, she read. Explain. Jade's eyes flashed with the feral cunning that had built her audience. Lots of people have my phone, she said. People forget. People also forget to silence their microphones, Tasha said, and cued the clip from the workshop. The projector on Jade's demand. The room hearing capacity letter template in Jade's own voice. The line about cute notary pics. The gallery sucked air. Jade folded into tears that did not quite fall. This is a witch hunt, she whispered. You hate me because I'm pretty and organized. I hate no one, Judge Vega said, voice the warm steel of a bridge in winter. I do despise sloppiness. You tell me you're organized. Prove it. Show me the real invoices, the bank logs, the donor lists. Show me where love lives in your paper. Jade stared, blinking like a deer who finally sees the highway. In rebuttal, Angela offered the safe deposit letter and the video. The room turned toward the screen as my mother's face filled it, green cardigan neat as a prayer. I am also saying this, she said. The house is for Nora. If I sign something else, this week, it is because the pen jumped. In the hush after, even the heat registers seemed to swallow their clicks. Judge Vega took a long breath. Counsel, she said. Closing comments will be written, not performed. File them in 7 days. I will issue an order thereafter. The gavel sounded like punctuation at the end of a true sentence. On the steps, microphones waited. I put my hand on the black binder and shook my head. No comment today, I said. Comment goes to the court. Behind us, Harrison left through a side door, shoulders rounded, expensive life folded into a paper boat. Jade filmed herself crying under a tree that hadn't asked to be a prop. Lucas walked beside me to the car like a man learning to use his knees again. I don't know how to live after this, he said. You do, I said. One good decision at a time, like breathing. Will you let me help fix the house? Whatever the judge decides? The lilac in my chest put out one grim bud in January. Bring your tool belt, I said. We have windows that stick. Chapter 11. The Order, the Door, and the Debt. The order landed on a Thursday at 9:07 a.m. in an email that made my fingers fumble the mug. Order. The September codicil is void for undue influence and lack of demonstrated capacity. The court reinstates the prior estate plan, bequeathing the real property at 38 Bradford to the decedent's daughter, Nora Whitaker. The court further, 1. Enjoins Ms. Moreno Whitaker from encumbering or entering said property without consent. 2. Appoints a forensic accountant to quantify damages related to fraudulent invoices and attempted refinance. 3. Refers this matter to law enforcement for investigation into impersonation and wire fraud. And 4. Transmits a copy of this order to the Rhode Island Bar re the conduct of Mr. Harrison Dalrymple and supervisory responsibilities of Mr. Henry Dalrymple. Judge Vega's concluding paragraph was a civics lesson disguised as lullaby. Love is not a loophole. It is a duty. Paper tells stories. Today, this paper tells one where the pen did not get to jump. I printed the order. I read it to the lilac through the kitchen window just to be petty. By noon, the locksmith met Angela at the house. We changed the locks not because power tastes good, but because safety does. Angela walked me through the trustee's final steps like a pilot listing switches. "I'll file my accounting next week," she said. "The property goes to you free and clear once the clerk stamps this." "Thank you," I said, simple and big. "I don't take thanks," she said, mouth twitching. "But I will take biscotti." She looked at the yard. "Plant something loud in spring." "I will," I said. It's what she wanted. At 2, a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit called with a careful voice. "We'd like to talk through Miss Moreno Whitaker's invoices," he said. "We have other complainants." The heat under my sternum steadied. "I'll bring the binder," I said. "I'll bring coffee." By 4, the Dalrymple firm issued a statement. It was classic good china, apology without confession, surprise without culpability. Harrison resigned. His father transitioned out of probate practice. Denise messaged me a screenshot and 3 words. "We did that." At 6, Lucas showed up with caulk guns and a face that still remembered crying, but was starting to remember laughing. We sealed drafts and argued gently about whether the upstairs hallway needed eggshell or satin. The Federal Hill aunties arrived with eggplant parm and opinions. "You hang a cross? A mezuzah? A horseshoe? It all helps," Auntie Rosa declared. "A smoke detector," I said. "That's my religion." We ate on the floor like college kids. Lucas found the old Polaroid camera in a shoebox, and we took a picture of the 4 of us with paint in our hair and sauce on our shirts. The photo spit out and developed itself into proof of something. Not victory. Continuance. When the house quieted, I walked into my mother's room alone. The cedar chest still smelled like her. I opened the dresser drawer where the letter had slept and found what grief does when it's done being theatrical. It folds laundry. I sorted socks. I paired them the way you pair witnesses with exhibits, by feel. On the nightstand sat a tiny spiral pad with a single new entry in my mother's shaky hand. "If I owe a debt, pay it with kindness if you can. Pay it with money if you must. Pay it with the truth always." The next morning, the detective called with an update. "We served a search warrant," he said. "We recovered devices. Ms. Moreno Whitaker is online-less." The brand went dark like a stage after curtain. Jade's last reel froze in amber, a caption that said, "Taking time to heal." Comments sagged into conspiracy. I expected to feel exultant. Instead, I felt old, in the way you feel old after you've outlived a storm you didn't ask to measure yourself against. I made tea. I warmed the mug. I called Denise and put her on speaker while I scrubbed grout. "We should build a template," she said. "A simple kit for families. Timeline sheet, invoice checklist, questions for doctors, places to store passwords." "Call it warm the mug," I said, surprising myself. She laughed. "You're serious." "I'm always serious," I said, "and sometimes right." We drafted on a legal pad while the kettle screamed and the house exhaled. By lunch, we had a 1-page timeline grid, a receipt log with columns for date, source, amount, why it smells funny, and a script for asking, "Can you write that down?" in 3 polite intensities. The lilac put out another bud in my chest. By the weekend, Lucas moved into the downstairs apartment to save on rent while he and I rehabbed the upstairs. He removed the stubborn kitchen window, and when we pried up the sill, we found a cigar tin wedged in insulation. Inside, receipts from the 1980s, a Polaroid of my mother in her 70s with a baby, Lucas, on her lap, and a note in my father's block hand. For whoever fixes my bad window, buy yourself a beer. There was $40 in old bills that smelled like a bowling alley and a marriage. We pinned the Polaroid to the fridge with the lighthouse magnet. On Sunday night, I took the order and my mother's letter to the cemetery. Providence wind cut through my coat with the honesty of ocean air. I read the judge's words aloud. I read Mom's too. Then I said the only thing that felt right. We paid the debt with truth. When I turned to go, a young couple pushed a stroller down the path, quiet, tired, holding hands. They didn't look at me. They didn't have to. I recognized the posture of the living. Forward. Chapter 12. Spring with Receipts. April in Providence is a practical joke. Sun in the morning, insult by dinner. But the lilac in front of 38 Bradford heaved itself into bloom like it had been practicing all winter. The air around the house tasted purple. We hung a small tin sign by the downstairs door. The Eleanor Room, respite Saturdays, 10 to 4. Denise organized volunteers. The aunties managed snacks with tyrannical kindness. We put out our warm the mug kits in a stack by the entry. Photocopied, stapled, clear. Timeline, receipts, questions, logins. People came with paper grocery bags full of chaos. They left with folders and breath in their lungs. Lucas rebuilt the back steps and, on Sundays, fixed small things for neighbors who asked with the humility grief teaches. He wore the raw circle under his wedding band like a healed scar. Some nights, he sat on the stoop and stared at his hands. Then he stood up and went back to work. Harrison met with the ethics board, then called to say he was enrolling in an elder advocacy training the hospital offered. "I'm not asking for absolution," he said. "I'm asking for better instincts." "Earn them," I said. "Then teach someone else." He sent me a photo a month later, him in a drab room with a circle of seniors, listening. No captions, no emojis. Mr. Dalrymple sent a letter I didn't have to open to know it was a diagram of regret without the nouns. I filed it under K for keep as evidence that people can be cowards with fountain pens. The forensic accountant finished her numbers. The judge ordered restitution and a civil judgment that will outlast trends. The criminal case moved with the stoicism of granite. Slow, inevitable. I did not check every docket update because I wanted spring to belong to the living. One Saturday, a woman came in with a canvas tote and trembling hands. "My stepdaughter says I'm forgetful," she whispered. "I think she wants my house." We sat at the kitchen table, my mother's table, where I had learned to brown meat until it almost scared me. We wrote dates. We taped receipts to copy paper because photographs don't curl as much when you scan them. We printed a list of questions for her doctor, then practiced asking them with a voice that did not apologize for needing help. When she left, she hugged me with that desperate gratitude that feels like a debt you don't mind carrying. "No one ever told me I could do this," she said. "Write the story before someone else does." "You can," I said. "Warm the mug first." At dusk, I walked out to the lilac and pressed my fingers to the bark. The bush had survived winters and bad pruning and a city that forgets to be gentle. It bloomed anyway. Inside, on the mantel, we kept 2 photos side by side. My mother, cardigan green, lifting a mug with an expression that said, "Don't make a fuss," and the Polaroid of the 4 of us with paint in our hair and sauce on our shirts. Between them, the lighthouse magnet held the judge's order folded to the last paragraph. The part about love not being a loophole. Sometimes, I would read it aloud into an empty room, just to hear what a sane world sounds like. On a Tuesday in late May, I found Lucas in the yard, kneeling by a small square of turned earth. He looked up, dirt on his cheek like a child who fell into summer. Raised bed, he said. Tomatoes. Your grandmother would approve, I said. She'd disapprove of your spacing. She can haunt me, he said, and smiled. We set seedlings into soil. We watered. We argued about cages. A neighbor waved. The aunties shouted advice from the stoop like umpires. The air smelled like bruised basil and cheap hose water and a life. That night, I wrote a note and tucked it into the mug kit's back pocket, the page we'd left blank on purpose. Add one thing you want to remember that isn't a receipt, it said. I wrote, warm the mug. Then I wrote, the window sticks in spring. Then, the lilac will try again, even if you don't. I slid the note back. I closed the binder. I turned out the kitchen light and watched the porch lamp lace shadows over the steps my son had rebuilt. People will call this revenge because it ends with one person smaller and another standing in a doorway that finally opens on the first try. It isn't revenge. It is restoration. It is the heat finding a home. And if anyone asks what we did in Providence that winter that decided to become spring, I will tell them we told the truth out loud and on paper, in order and with names, until a judge could hear it and the lilac could too. Then we watered what loved us back. Then we ate tomatoes warm from the sun and didn't take a picture. Because some proof lives best in the body that survived.